Hi everyone, this is Tomasz Kellner from GE. We are coming to you live from Moscone Center in San Francisco for GE's Minds and Machines conference. I'm sitting here with Eddie Amos, Vice President for Industrial Applications at GEdigital. Eddie, welcome.
It's great to be here.
Eddie, I have a sort of the big picture question for you in the beginning. GE is going through this massive digital industrial transformation. What is GE's digital role in it?
So if you sit back and think about GE as a company, when we started on this transformation several years ago, we went out and looked high and low across the market to find vendors who could actually come back and satisfy what we thought a digital transformation would look like. We found none. We found a lot of pieces and parts. And to actually make GE one of the world's largest industrial companies function and be able to take this, we had to go back and rethink about how we wanted the world to look, how we could actually use all of the assets we had to build greater efficiencies for GE. So as we stepped back, we realized that none of the industrial platforms that were in the market today were good enough, okay? They didn't have the ability to ingest the amounts of data, run the type of analytics. We knew there was a set of applications that the industry needed around an asset. How do we come back and make sure those assets work 7 by 24? And then we move out from the old maintenance world where you would go, say, preventative maintenance, change your oil every 3,000 miles, to more predictive, more prognostic, so that you can come back and say, this type of asset is probably going to fail within this time period. And by building these components out and acquiring some incredible companies that we've been doing over the past couple of years, whether it was Meridium, ServiceMax, BitStew, Wise.io, we have put together an incredible platform that helps us then manage this entire transformation across the entire GE portfolio.
And sort of when you talked about the older, sort of the legacy industrial platforms, these are some like ERP systems or CRM systems or something else?
So you have a whole list of systems out there. You have OT systems and IT systems.
This is operation technology and IT.
Correct. So on the operational technologies, you may have sensors that's been out there for
the machines,
10, 20 years. And customers are not going to change those just because you come up with a new piece of technology. So most modern pieces of equipment are outfitted with modern sensors. So we have to make sure that we can work with what's out there today, but also what's shipping in the future. Now, the role of an ERP system, that's basically a financial system. When you built a ERP model, it's built on numbers. I mean, that's how companies like SAP or Maximo and others got started. Then you have systems like CRM systems. That's all around customer relationship management. That's based on your people or your sales force. That's different from what we're trying to do. We're focused on the assets. We think about that asset from the time it's designed until it's time it's decommissioned. Now, we may have to take information from those two systems. That's part of the digital thread. That's interoperability.
So it's almost like a life cycle. You can see it from the beginning to the end.
And what makes us unique here, and it's only a handful of companies on the planet that can do this, GE, we actually design, build, manufacture, operate, and service equipment. So if you're a pure software company, you may, just...
That's what they call, sorry to interrupt you, that's the domain expertise that we hear.
That's what we bring to the market. So where somebody can come in and say, I can plug in and give you a historical view what's already happened and try to predict it, less than satisfying. If you want to come back and say, I want to pop a historian in and, look at, flow, pressure, temperature, that's okay. But because we design, build, manufacture, service, and operate equipment, we have unique insights around failure codes. We have incredible analytic insights because of the operation of the facilities we do. And then when something does break and how we service them, we're actually take all of those findings and pump them right back in to build incredible artificial intelligence components. One of the companies we acquired last year, Wise.io, incredible set of mathematical functions that we're adding on it. Now, the nice thing is you don't have to be a data scientist to figure this out. We're abstracting that layer of complexity out so that you can use these products almost in a commercial off-the-shelf manner.
This is really interesting. There are 4,000 people at Minds and Machines this year.
It's incredible. Look around.
It's incredible. Obviously, they all understand the importance of the digital transformation, but how do you do the education? How do you educate people about that they need to really embrace digital? Because as John Flannery said earlier this morning, I mean, it is a sort of a life and death decision. You have to go digital.
Well, if you sit back and look at it, a lot of folks are still thinking about, just simple cost out equations. And that's, part of the equation, but you really need to think about outcomes. If you want to be successful in digital, what are you really trying to strive for? I mean, we're thinking about every day of our lives. We're maniacally focused on assets. And because we're maniacally focused on assets, our digital vision is how do we make sure they run 7 by 24?
And
How do you have less downtime? If you have less downtime, then you can increase profitability. How do you increase profitability? Well, if I have a better visibility of what's going across this asset, I might not have to have as many spares. And then if you think about GE as a company and what we're doing, once again, we design, build, manufacture, service, operate equipment. We're very big in the additive space. So then we just add to this. So imagine the scenario that's going to start playing out with us over time, whereas we know something's going to break. We send it to our additive group. The additive group prints this out. It's sitting on the dock. The service person shows up. We repair it. They go.
it's amazing. Now, you mentioned assets. I mean, these assets, that could be anything. It could be locomotive. It could be gas turbine. It could be a jet engine. We just had Murray Adams from Qantas, telling us about Flight Pulse, their app that they are using. Which leads me to a question about asset performance management. You are a VP for industrial apps at GEdigital. Tell us about APM. I mean, what is it? I mean, we hear about it a lot.
So when we think about APM, we think about everything that happens with that asset. So how do we, optimize that performance? How do we set back and monitor it? How do we understand those failure codes? How do we put strategies in place to make sure that the most critical applications or assets in a company are identified? And then what are we doing from the what-if scenarios to make sure they're just operating at peak performance? So in a given day, we may start with a particular asset, but we're just not thinking about that particular pump. We're thinking about that balance of plant. What is everything connected to that pump that could cause this facility to have problems and then cause downtime? So it's an entire strategy. It's an incredible set of mathematical algorithms that we've been developing over the years, based on failure codes, based on interoperability with historic data, based on the components that we've been able to gather from working with customers over the many years.
And what are some of the outcomes? Say I'm a utility, and I'm operating a gas-fired power plant, and I implement an APM solution in my power plant. What are some of the outcomes that I can achieve with APM?
So in that particular case, you can look for things such as you want to make sure that you are minimizing downtime, that you're taking this component offline at a peak period or at a non-peak period of time so that, it's not going to affect your bottom line. Oil and gas companies, how do you make sure that if you're a downstream refinery that you can run this 7 by 24 if oil is $100 a barrel, that if oil is $40 a barrel and you don't have as many folks, that you're still building the same rigor in terms of your maintenance operation that don't cause a catastrophic event. We sit back and think every day, how do we protect the planet, people, and the profits of companies? So in those profits is going to be tied to those assets. What is your outcome? I've got to reduce downtime. I've got to reduce my spares. I've got to make sure that we're increasing my productivity for the top line and the bottom line. So those are the things that we think about. So we think about it not just as one strategy, but the entire balance of plant and what can go wrong, will go wrong, and could go wrong, and try to prevent it.
That's really fascinating. Now, another app or another term that we hear quite a lot is operations performance management. How does it fit with APM? How do the two compare?
So when you sit back and think about operations performance management, we introduced that at the show this year. So imagine now that we've got all this incredible data about these assets. We're running algorithms that we know. If you're in oil and gas, we're running specific things related to American Petroleum Institute standards. If we're in power, if we're running nuclear, NERC requirements, there's many things you have to do. Then you're always left with these questions. Well, what if? What if I, turn this knob and accepted more risk? What would that do to my bottom line? What if I delayed maintenance a little bit on this asset? What could it do in terms of my, total risk portfolio, uptown, downtime? So in the operation performance management, it's a set of advanced algorithms that sit on top of APM that allow you to do those complex what-if solutions. We're working a lot in the mining industry with this right now, power and oil and gas. It's a very, very exciting set of software. And it goes back to, you can give folks a lot of, artificial intelligent toolkits and go out and say, build your own. We're going to take it a different approach. We want to build that intelligence in all the industrial applications we have, so then a practitioner can take them and not have to be a rocket scientist to come back and get real inputs or outputs that's going to help them run their business.
Now, you mentioned that knob. So how does the system know that what happens, say, if you turn it, accept a little more risk, turn it up a little more? I mean, is there a digital twin? Digital twin is sort of the virtual representation of the system. Is it something like that?
Yeah, so when you step back and you think about what we build, we have the physics-based models that a digital twin can pick up. So we can step back and basically simulate what the real world and the physical world is going to look like.
Inside the computer.
Right inside the computer. So if you step back, we have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of digital twins that we're building. A lot of this comes from the data that we're gathering. A lot of this comes back because we design, build, operate, service equipment. So once again, GE is unique in that. So not just do we have the physical representation of that terminal or turbine, but we can also have the digital twin of it, so we can come back and do a lot of these what-if scenarios.
That's amazing. Now, one question I wanted to ask you about is the value that these industrial apps are driving. And you were talking during your presentation about this steel company called Gerdau.
Gerdau, yes.
Maybe we can use them as an example of the value that industrial apps can create.
So, in most companies like Gerdau, they'll sit back and they'll look at what their maintenance budget is every year. In this particular customer's case, I think they're spending something like $305 million a year on maintenance. We should all just pause and think about that. $305 million in maintenance. So imagine if they could cut 20% of that out, okay, 61 million, and pop that back into R&D, what they could be doing. So the way the digital transformations are working on right now is that we can help build that. So we can help them reduce that 20%. So in Gerdau's case, they already had things like vibration monitoring, but they didn't have the analytic capabilities to sit back and say, this smelter will have problems within this time frame with this piece of critical equipment. So being able to come back and take things such as, our historian, things we're doing with Smart Signal, things we're doing with our advanced analytic capabilities, they were able to come back and for 50 assets, have a most immediate return on investment. So imagine that when they take it from 50 to 600 assets. That's when you really start seeing the power of what APM and our digital transformation tools, what they can do for a company.
That's really fascinating. Now, before I let you go, we've prepared a few rapid-fire fun facts questions.
So we don't get to talk about technology anymore. We have to change. Okay, got it.
Well, we will. We will. In fact, we are going to be talking about apps.
Oh, okay,
so what was the last app you downloaded?
Predict Studio.
Predict Studio. Tell us about Predict Studio.
So Predict Studio is it's a new application that we're building within GE Digital right now, and it gives us the ability to extend out our APM solution. So what we call the citizen developer, this is people that don't have to have a lot of coding skills. We showed it on stage today. You can drag and drop and build new applications. So to be honest, that was the latest code I pulled down this morning.
And we talked, that's really interesting because we talked about sort of driving the digital change, explaining it to people. This is one of the tools that, in fact, even if you don't know how to code, even if you're not a hardcore coder, you could actually create an app with it.
Well, the nice thing about what we've got both with Predict Studio and Policy Designer within the APM tools, they're designed for the business analyst, the end user. We want those folks to be able to come back and use that incredible intelligence they have upstairs to come back and say, what if I did this, what would be the outcome? So giving them the ability to come out and extend our apps in a very seamless manner. So that's a good one. Hopefully we'll have it available for everybody to download.
All right. Well, let's go back to the fun fact questions. Where do you get your news?
Where do I get my news? Most of the time I get my news from the BBC or Google News.
Okay. Hunter or gatherer?
Oh, definitely a hunter.
Hunter. Batman or Superman?
Oh, no comparison. It's Batman.
When I dance, I look like?
Fred Astaire.
Oh, amazing. Favorite icon?
Favorite icon, Grace Hopper. She was a rear admiral in the U.S. Navy who broke all the gender barriers. She just was a phenomenal lady. She just basically would say, she would break down barriers by just doing it and asking for forgiveness later.
Okay.
So she was really an inspiration in my career. Probably my other favorite icons, if you haven't seen the movie Hidden Figures, those three ladies at NASA.
That was amazing.
They rock.
There were ladies like that in at GE Aviation, doing the computation for some of the early supersonic jet engines.
It's just amazing. So it's I look at those folks and I'm just in awe. So.
And morning, noon?
Oh, I'm definitely a night person.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This was a pleasure talking to you.